Hey there, magical experimenters. Taylor Ellwood here. And tonight I thought I would talk about cursing and how cursing can be a form of healing. So I know it's been a little while since I've done these solo videos. I actually have one more interview I'm doing here next week, and then after that, I'm taking a break from interviews for a while. Just because I think it'd be good to get back to doing some more of these solo videos. I've enjoyed doing the interviews, and I plan on doing more in the future. But I think it's good to mix things up. And I've been doing a lot of them lately, and I've been missing you guys as a result, and our interactions. So here I am. So I thought I'd talk about cursing and how cursing can be a form of healing, because I think that you know most people would kind of consider cursing to be like a bad thing to do, right? You know, like, oh, you're going to curse someone or you're going to curse something. That's a bad thing to do. Well, I think first of all, curses can operate in a number of different ways. For example, Stephanie Connolly has this one curse that she did where you curse a bad habit of yours. And I actually did this working. I did this. I did this curse. I cursed a bad habit of mine. In my case, the thing that I did the curse around was a curse around how I'm not always as forthright and honest as I need to be with people. I'll sugarcoat things sometimes. I've really been made aware of this, and I've really been thinking about it a lot. And so the curse was around that. And I found that ever since I did that curse, that I've definitely become more honest with myself and with other people and less sugarcoaty about things. I think that's a good thing for the most part. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm getting better at it, and I'm going to keep getting better at it because it's a worthwhile thing to do. So sometimes, a curse can operate in that form where you're cursing something about yourself, something that, you realize it doesn't work, and you realize you need to change it and transform it. And that's a good way to do it. So there's that aspect. But sometimes a curse is really around cursing somebody else that has done you wrong. And people might say, well, Taylor, should we really do that? I mean, is that the ethical thing to do? And my response to that would be, well, it depends on where you're at with your life. Or if you're able to let stuff go, then let it go. But if you're not, if you realize that there is this trauma and pain that you're holding on to from what somebody did to you, I think that it is okay to employ a curse. And I'm not saying whether or not that curse will actually affect that person's life. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make your own peace with that if that's something you choose to do. And there may be some ramifications. So even there, I would say that ultimately a curse can sometimes be done for the benefit of the person. For example, I did a curse around the person that assaulted me on the trail last year when I was walking around, the meth addict. And that curse was really done to create forced sobriety for him. And basically that he would be turned off from doing drugs and that he would get the justice and the help that he really needed. That was the curse. So it was a curse because I was the aggrieved person dealing with the trauma of being assaulted by somebody. But it's a curse that's really ultimately designed around helping that person achieve some degree of sobriety and get the justice that is needed, and hopefully the help that's needed in order for him to get to a better life. And I think that a lot of times when people think of curses, they think of curses in terms of just like really doing harm to somebody. And certainly curses can operate in that way. But I think that, it all comes right down to how you approach a curse. Do you want to harm somebody, or do you want to help them maybe get to a better place, but they need to learn certain lessons and you just happen to have that trauma that needs to go there? At the same time, I also think there's something to be said for just also owning the fact that sometimes we have a sense of trauma and pain and aggrievement or whatever else towards somebody. And the reason we're doing the curse is really just to release that from ourselves. And whether or not it hits that person, it's more about the fact that it actually is doing something where it's helping us move past something that otherwise has become a blockage in our life. And yes, I know we can do inner alchemy. We can do internal work, dissolve those blockages and release those things. And certainly those are things to do. But sometimes it's worth remembering that, all the internal work in the world, all the inner alchemy in the world isn't going to help you get through something. Sometimes you have to direct it outward. Sometimes you have to do something with it. Now, I think that where people get weird about this is that, they get into the ethical ramifications and they're like, I don't, like, do no harm if you're Wiccan or whatever else, or something along those lines. And my response to that is like, really, realistically, it's very hard to go through life not harming something. In fact, the fact of the matter is you really can't. I mean, every time you take a bite of food, you've harmed something. You've harmed a plant, you've harmed an animal, depending on what you're eating. You've harmed something just to eat. Taking a breath, you might be killing microorganisms. Now that seems like a very grim way to put this stuff, but I think it's a very realistic way too. I'm not saying that you should go out there and intentionally be an asshole to people, because I don't think that's a good thing either. And speaking as someone who's occasionally been that asshole, I can tell you that it's not a good thing. I look back on those periods of time where I have not been a good person on purpose, and I'm not proud of myself for that. I'm pretty ashamed of it, honestly, and it's something that, where I continue to work on that because I want to be a better person. So I don't think that's the way to go. But I think that, like, when you have an experience in your life that has been traumatic, there has to be a way to transform that experience. And sometimes what you need is a sense of justice, a sense of aggrievement being expressed. And that's where I think cursing can come into play, because cursing can be a healthy outlet. You don't want to walk up to the person and punch them in the face. I mean, maybe you do, but you know that if you do that, there are legal ramifications. You know that if you go and you shoot the person, there are legal ramifications. You could be in jail for the rest of your life. You know that, if you do other things, there could be legal ramifications, but there's really no legal ramification for cursing, because there's really no way to connect it. And really, depending on how you look at it, you can just see as, okay, this person's cursing that person. They're really just venting and releasing something that they need to release and vent. And I think that that's really an important distinction to make. Like, we need to have healthy outlets for the rage and the trauma and the anger that we feel. We need to find a way to feel a sense of justice, a sense of peace and health in a way through this kind of act. And I think a lot of people get uncomfortable contemplating this, like, oh my gosh, like, Taylor, this is a really uncomfortable thing to contemplate. And I get it. Speaking as someone who has sometimes done some stuff where I'm like, "God, is that really the right way to handle this?" I get it. But I think that there is something to be said for achieving a real sense of justice and awareness around yourself that helps you to feel at peace with yourself in a way that allows you to also feel like what you're feeling aggrieved about has actually been addressed. We all carry trauma within us, and sometimes that trauma cannot be healed through all the therapy, all the internal work, all the inner alchemy. We can do the best we can, but that's just not the way it's going to come out. Sometimes we have to know when to release it in a different way, and that's where cursing can be an outlet for us. So I put that out there, and I recognize this is a fairly interesting way to approach the topic, but it's just something that I've been thinking about. It's something that I've been contemplating a lot lately, because I think it's worthwhile to really look at, like, why do you do what you do? And speaking as someone who probably has been cursed a few times, I can also safely say that, like, if that curse has come to fruition in my life, it has ultimately led to my betterment for me. I mean, I've gone through some rough experiences, no doubt. I mean, I look back at the last few years of my life, and things were shitty for a while. They're a lot better now, and I hope they stay that way. But, I went through some rough times, and I can be okay with that, because those rough times ended up ultimately helping me to become a better person, teaching me and training me and leading me in a good direction. And I think that's really important. So those are my thoughts on cursing and how cursing can be a form of healing. I think at the end of the day, if you ever choose to do cursing magic, you have to kind of look at it from like why are you doing it? What is it for? How is it helping you? Because it ought to help you. I think if it's not helping you in some form or manner, then like why are you doing it anyway, right? And I think when we really look at these things and think about it from this kind of perspective, it just helps us to understand like what the motivation is for what we're doing. Yeah, yeah, Brent, that's right. Cursing for healing can be healing. That's exactly right. It can be healing. It can be a form of healing. It can be a form of letting go. It can be a form of release. And people get this idea too, like, okay, if I curse somebody, I'm karmically attaching myself to them. But look, if you're already holding on to that trauma from whatever that person did, you're already karmically attached to them. Maybe what you're doing is actually releasing that karma. You're releasing that trauma. You're releasing those things that are holding you back. These are the things that I think, are worth contemplating and considering in our work. And so this is one of the reasons I'm talking about it tonight. All right, so there's your video this week. You're going to be getting a lot more of these in the near future. There's going to be one more interview, but as I said, I'm taking a break for a while from that afterwards. I've done a lot in the last few months, and I think they've been good. But sometimes it's good to change things up, and I'm ready to change it up again. So there we go. In the meantime, you guys stay healthy, happy, and all that other good stuff. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to comment like Brent did, and like this video. And otherwise, take care of yourselves.